Welcome to another episode of the Preparing for Pregnancy After Loss podcast. And I have the absolute pleasure of sitting here with Thérèse Cator, who you'll hear a lot more about in a few minutes. So let me start with her bio. Welcome, Thérèse.
Hi, Natalie. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's my pleasure. So I'll read your bio. Thérèse Cator, she, her, hers, is the founder of Embodied Black Girl. She's an embodiment practitioner, decolonial leadership coach, and somatic experiencing practitioner in training. She works at the intersection of spirit, somatics, and social justice rooted in a decolonial lens. Thérèse is devoted to guiding people of all backgrounds to untether from the colonial and cultural conditioning that create cultures of disconnection. She invites them to unmap their bodies from supremacy and transgenerational trauma, and in the process, unearth the innate power and gifts essential to weaving the new world. Thérèse holds a BA from NYU and an MFA from Rutgers University. Thérèse's work has been featured in Essence, Forbes, Jezebel, Mind, Body, Green, among others. Welcome, Thérèse.
Hi, Natalie. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy and grateful to be having this conversation today.
Yes. So I know that when we connect, the conversations can go on for a while.
It does. It does.
So hopefully stay within time, but others can connect with you on your social media afterwards, and I'm sure they'll be inspired too. All right. So I first connected with you or learned about your work 2 years ago in February. So like almost 2 years ago to the date. And there was a workshop you were holding on love, like self-love and somatics, something about love. It was like around February 14th, which was my baby's birthday. And so I knew that I wanted to be just like surrounded by love around that time. Or I knew that I wanted to have something that held me as I was like grieving and revisiting the experience of his birth. I eventually was not able to make it because what I really, really needed on that day was to just like be in bed. But I remember reading your bio and just seeing the image of you and feeling your energy and really wanting to be there, right? Really wanting to learn from you, like really inspired by that workshop that you were leading. And somehow I saw some other thing that you were leading and was able to attend. And that's, when the pandemic and everything that's happening now had started, and was just blown away by the offering. Like I got to go so deep. And I think the workshop was probably about an hour and a half, but there was so much that came out of it for me. And I've just kept doing courses with you since. So that 2 years later, there's this other version of myself that is like here, a version that's like bolder and feels wiser and more aware. And it's just been a beautiful transformation for me. And so I wanted to share you and share your work and connect our listeners to, some of the I guess the practices that I've been learning from you, like how you walk the world. So I'm really grateful that we get to have this space together.
Aww. Thank you so much, Natalie. Thank you for reflecting that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been my honor to watch you just blossom and just step into the work, the powerful work that you're doing in the world. And thank you also for bringing up your baby, your angel baby.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt as soon as you brought that up, like that energy is in the space. That baby's energy is in the space. And I feel so honored that, we connected around that time. And now it's a couple of years later. And yeah, so I'm just so grateful. So grateful.
Thank you. Thank you, Mateo. Thank you for saying that his energy is here. Like, I can feel that. Okay, so I imagine that you had to go on your own journey to be able to guide people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to hear from you, like, what was that call for you? Like that call to the work, that call to adventure, as they call it. What was that for you?
I like that call to adventure. Definitely a call to adventure with peaks and valleys. That's for sure. But I feel that I never really set out to do this specific work in my mind. And I still identify with that. I'm an artist. So everything that I do, it's with artistry. And what is it that is supposed to be woven? What is the medicine? And I feel like the work that I do now, it's art, right? There's part of it that is, of course, trainings, but then it's kind of like when you have a script and you're studying the script, like I went to theater school, you're studying the script, you're learning all the lines, you're learning all the movements. And then at a certain point, when you have to let it all go. And that's where the magic happens. So I see my work in the same way of like, yes, I've learned all of those things, and then it's letting them go. So if I had to like pinpoint the first, moment, it would have to be in my childhood. I was always like a really intuitive child. And I'd be one of those kids. I grew up in New York City on the bus, and like older people would tell me their whole life story. And I feel like I've heard people say that, but it really would happen. I'm like on the bus minding my own business, and like someone tells me their entire life story, and I would just be listening. And also, growing up, I grew up with my mom. My family is from Haiti. And so I grew up with my mom. Even though we grew up in the city, she would take me on these medicine walks and show me the medicine that is all around, Brooklyn, Manhattan, things that people don't pay attention to.
Wow.
And really having that embedded in my lineage. And also, she's an activist. So I grew up seeing that connection between nature, between social justice, between spirit, like it was all connected. So fast forward, I feel that really one of the first things that really propelled me into this work was when my dad passed away. And actually, it just passed his 10-year anniversary of when he left Earthside. So, and that brought me to my knees in so many ways. My dad, he was a medicine man. He was also a brilliant artist. He was also a mathematician. He did many things. And it was really clear that I needed to step into and start to honor my own medicine. And I had gotten so many signs over the years that I pushed away. I was doing it, but not fully doing it. Like I had clients and I was doing it, but I wasn't fully doing it. And it was really a call to really step into that next level of what, and when I say next level, I don't see it as a hierarchy. It's more of like a depth. So, stepping into that depth of what I was really meant to do. And then what happened a little over a year and a half after my dad passed, was that I was racially profiled by the police. I was living on the West Coast at the time in California. And that just something that just shook me to my core. I had, of course, always known and studied and about the injustices, systemic injustices, having seen it with family members. And then this was an experience where it didn't matter what my education was. It didn't matter what class. It didn't matter. All those things didn't matter. What mattered in that moment was the color of my skin. And I remember in that moment, literally being on the side of the highway, like, it was like an exit, and being on my knees and looking up at the sky, and there was helicopters above, and just being like, God, if I make it out of this, whatever it is that you want me to do, I will do it.
Wow.
I will do it. And obviously I made it out. And it was just another layer of really talking about the systemic injustices and how it really seeps into everything.
Yeah.
And how it seeps into wellness, how it seeps into spirituality. And really, in order for us to create a world where we can all belong, we have to unpack. We have to unpack the ways that these systems have conditioned us and have socialized us. No matter what your race or gender or identity is, it's impacted us in different ways. Obviously, there's a spectrum of how it's impacted us. Folks that identify as white, it's given them a lot of privilege, but with that privilege, it's also disconnected them from being embodied. It's create a form of disconnection and disembodiment, what I call disembodied leadership or disconnected leadership. So this is an invitation, so really right now, my work is really about this invitation into embodying who we truly are so that we can create a world that we can be proud of to leave behind to our children, whether you have children or not. They're all our children. I have a child, but those are some of the really, huge things that led to this moment.
Yeah. Wow. Powerful. Wow. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, that's powerful. Really powerful. So I'd love for you to share more about the courses that you offer. So, we've talked about your background, but I really want people to understand what the work is that you actually guide people through. So please share more about that.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So I have, as you know, Circle of Reclamation, which is what I call it is just a healing and leadership course. And currently it's not open, but the course is where we all come together for our healing and to really deepen in our leadership and explore all the parts of ourselves that have been lost, that have been disconnected because of colonialism, because of patriarchy, because of supremacy, because of so many things, because of even familial wounds and personal wounds. And how can we reclaim that? And in that process, how does it impact how we show up in our lives as leaders, as parents, as community members, no matter what it is that you do? So it's just a beautiful, 1 year journey where we literally go through all of these different portals. So that's, one of the offerings. Another one is Decolonial Leadership Circle, which is all about, it's for folks who have something that they want to bring forth in the world. It can be a business, it can be a project, it can be an organization, but to really, how do we honor our deepest soul's calling? How can we truly honor that? And we go through, that one is more so ceremony. It's not about coursework, but really it's more about embodying those. There's, of course, strategy. It's a mixture of strategy and soul, and how we can create sustainable, equitable, liberatory businesses, organizations, companies, And even in our projects, that really is in service to all of them. So those are just two. And I'm always working on stuff. Like I have to like literally stop myself. Like, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
But those are two of them. And then I have another, I do have one other one that's called Embodied Solidarity. And that's for white folks to really uproot white supremacy from their bodies and leadership to stand for justice and equity for all. And actually that is open for enrollment this month.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
And where can people find info about that?
That is at embodiedsolidarity.org.
Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
embodiedsolidarity.org.
Yeah. So as you shared about decolonialized leadership, I of course have to share my experience with it because that's one of the latest courses that I'm coming out of with you, and it's unlike anything that I've ever experienced. So my background was in marketing and PR, like that's what I studied. Worked in advertising and had a lot of inner conflict because of the products that we were advertising. So that was that was a whole journey for me, but learned a lot in the process. And after the losses, just knew that I needed to be doing my soul work, right? The work that I wanted to offer to the world, which is coaching, which is being the healing guide. And I did a course in just like being a business owner, like, you know, being an entrepreneur. And that was helpful because it needed to feel possible for me. So that course like unlocked that first layer for me. And working with you, like, whoa, did I go deep? Because I saw how my business was set up from these practices that, you know, we've been programmed in, and it wasn't all healthy, wasn't sustainable for me, like my body, right? For my health, for my care. And so that got to be uprooted. But I would say what was most powerful was the depths that I got to go within myself in order to create the main work. It's like the work underneath the work that I've been afraid of showing to the world. And that's what led to my program now called Rebirth. Right. And I essentially had to go through my own rebirth process with you in order to give birth to that course. And it was hard and beautiful because now I feel as though I get to be the most authentic version of myself in this moment offering that course. And today actually is a special day because it's the last day of our 4-month circle. Like this journey that we've been, like today is the very last day.
Oh, and it's a new moon too.
Yes.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah, I'm putting together like a summary, like a leave behind kind of document that people can refer to as they continue to go through their own cycles of rebirth. And as I was going through the course, I was like, wow, we did that? Like, that's what we did. And I'm like blown away, like, oh my gosh, these brave people, but also me, I did that. Just so much healing and so much connection and so much, what's the word? It's like recognition of themselves and other people, recognition of themselves in other people, like, oh, I'm not alone. And oh, I get to do this. And oh, this is where I've been coming from. And oh, these are the tools that I can use to go deeper. And it's been such a beautiful journey. And I would say, if I didn't have the courage to go there, and if I didn't have the support to go there, I wouldn't be able to be a guide to other people.
Yeah. You can't take people where you can't yourself go.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's really a testament to a number of things, right? Like you doing the work and stepping into the call, like you're able to guide so many people into their own leadership, into their own purpose work. And how we all get to do that for ourselves and each other, right? And this really is, it's a regenerative practice in the sense that the more healing that we do, I'm thinking of like openness and spaciousness. It's like the more that we release, it's like the more that gets to blossom within our lives and within the collective.
Yeah, it's like everyone has this vision for the new earth, for the new world, but then we cannot create that with the same behaviors, same thinking, same ways of being, same embodiments.
Yeah.
That created the world that we're living in now.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I got so many goosebumps as you were sharing that, especially around when you said it's the work beneath the work. Yeah, and that's what it is. It's finding the work beneath the work. And what is that medicine that we're each meant to bring forth? And I think many folks have been, I mean, I don't know who hasn't, myself included, have been conditioned, socialized, corrupted even. Some people are really at the corruption part by capitalism, right? By capitalism and not being in true relationship with people, right?
Yeah.
How can we be more relational opposed to transactional and extractive, which is what, you know, colonialism, capitalism is all about. So we're, you know, to create this new earth, to bring forth our gifts, we're actually being tasked and asked, invited into coming into deeper relationship with ourselves, with one another, with the earth. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Congratulations on
Thank
Rebirth.
you. Yes.
I'm excited. That's so awesome. I love that we're speaking on the day that it's all culminating. That's so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. So one of the things that I have learned through working with you is resting, pausing, listening to my body, and following the rhythms and cycles. And I'm curious, like what practices you use to find balance and to be in your rhythm.
Yeah, it's rest is everything, and I have to give credit where it's due, which is my mom. I remember growing up, she would always tell us to go take a nap all the time. This is like through my entire educational life, every single day. Go take a nap, you know, after school. I'm like, I can't take a nap. I have this to do. I have homework. I have that. By the time I was in high school, I was saying all of those things because I had already been conditioned and socialized into productivity and that kind of life, life, the grind life. But I remember she always was about us taking a nap and getting our rest. And really, my dad had a saying. He always says that rest is how we repair all of our energy. It's much more beautiful than that, but it's like very lyrical. But he would say, le sommeil est le réparateur des forces. That means sleep is how we restore all of our life force energy. That's more of a closer translation. But that really is it. Rest is life. Rest is life. And if we don't allow our bodies to rest, we're, you know, so many people are really, and I was there too. So I'm talking from experience, really buy into grind culture and constantly grinding to survive. And I understand that because, you know, systemic oppression has created poverty, right? This greed has created poverty. So there are people who cannot rest. Unfortunately, rest is not available to everyone. If you have, you know, 4 kids and you're working 2-3 jobs, it's pretty hard to rest. It's hard to rest. It was hard for my mom to rest, even though she told us to rest. So I really want to name that. But rest, even if we can find little moments where we can rest, where we can just, look out the window, where we can go out to nature, where we could just lie down if possible for a moment, to really start to honor our own body's rhythms. So I think I've shared this with you. Every month I have at least a week a month. I don't schedule anything unless it's like a emergency or something like that. But I have at least a week a month where I don't put anything on my calendar. And it's just my time to rest as much as I can, and obviously I have that built in throughout the days, but I really make it consciously a week during the month. And I align it with my rhythm, my moon cycle, just to honor my body after all these years. And that's just a practice. And I'm like, okay, if there's something else going on, I can't, because if I don't honor my body, there's no way I can show up for anyone else. So I feel like rest is definitely one of the biggest practices, because actually I just read, someone posted something on Instagram yesterday, and they said, if we could get everyone to sleep 2 more hours, it would lower greenhouse emissions. Wow. So that's how rest actually can be revolutionary in that sense. Like, people are up too much. Go lay down.
Yes, go lay down.
Slow it down. And that doesn't mean there aren't periods where I'm, if I'm working on something where I'm like, I have a lot of creative fire going on, I honor that too.
Yeah.
But I also really honor my rest. Really try to make sure I get rest.
Yeah.
As other practices that I love, meditation, breath work, movement practices, all of those embodiment practices, that's what they are. All of those practices that bring me back, bring us back, invite us back into our bodies, into connection with our bodies.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So I know you have a son and your niece with you as well. How do you find balance in family life? Like, how do you find balance being a mother and a wife and a daughter and this like badass leader?
It's really knowing that I need support. And it's really being able to relay the support that I need to people around me. I live in a multi-generational household, and I feel that has a lot of benefits. And then there's like some drawbacks, which are, you don't have that as much time. Yeah. But I feel like everyone is really honors if I'm like, okay, I need some time, or someone else says they need some time, really able to honor that. And, I think, since you brought up motherhood, I feel one of the things that is really difficult as a mother is not having a village. And when I gave birth to my son, I was living in LA at the time, and I didn't have a village, not because I didn't make friends, but LA has a very transient feeling. So every couple of years, I'd be making new friends because people would move. That's literally what happened. So I felt like I didn't have a village, and mothers, birthing people need a village to support them. Really, really, and truly. And so I feel like making sure I have a village that can support me, and some, and I can support them too. So it's not just like a one-way street. Really having a village so I can take that time. But it's challenging. It's hard. It's not, it's not easy. I have moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, with my little one, he's like at that phase where he can be like, he'll like hit me in my eye like he did yesterday because he was upset about something. And, obviously I didn't hit him back. But that's where the challenge is, like you have a day and then, the child's also having a day. But I think it's also being able to repair and being like, listen, having the conversations and coming back together. So a little bit circling back to what I was saying, coming into relationship with one another, it doesn't mean we won't have challenges. We are guaranteed to have challenges. We're guaranteed to have conflict. It's how well we can repair with one another.
Yeah. What was the question that was coming to mind? Something just like popped up. Yeah, in terms of having your village, what does that look like? Like, what are the asks? What are the requests? Like, how do they show up for you?
Yeah, the asks are, I would say time where I need to go outside, go for a walk. It is making sure that everyone has good, healthy food, nutritious food to eat, which we're lucky. I know there are people who live in food deserts. It's really making sure I have time so that I can do the practices that I know that I need to do so that I can show up as the best, mother, as the best daughter, as the best, coach, leader, practitioner that I can. And it's not about being perfect. We've had many conversations about perfectionism, but it's not about being perfect. But I know at this point the tool, like what I need in order to show up at my best. And some days, that might not happen, but I try to make it happen as much as possible.
Yeah. Thank you for
Things
sharing
that impact
that.
my energy.
Yeah.
Like, what really impacts my energy is like, I know if I don't eat, I get hangry. I get hangry, and depending if I'm like eating a lot of sugar, that all those things kind of impact how I can show up. And also tell me what state I'm in, what state my nervous system is in. So so having practices, having space so that I can show up as attached, securely attached, and as regulated as possible, except when a situation warrants for me to be deregulated.
Every now and again that happens.
Yeah, it's necessary, right?
Yeah. So I love that you shared that about the village, because what I've been finding as I work with clients either in group or one-to-one is, as they are preparing for motherhood, parenthood, there is this sense that there's a lot of fear that comes up with it, because they can't see themselves doing it while doing the life before, whether it's like their career, advancing in their career, as so many of us are taught to advance. They can't see parenthood fitting into that, even though they want to be parents. And what I share is that I sometimes talk about it in business language, like if your work is growing, your team needs to grow. And so who's on your team? What support do you have? Because it can't be just you doing all of these things. Right? So I don't think many of us like tap into that, like, oh, it's not just me, like I get to have a community, I get to have support. And it's interesting, the nuclear family versus the, what's it called again,
Like the multi-generational
family, which I grew up in one, and it had a lot of benefits. Right? So yeah, there's certain structures that we're either trained into, or we're just into those structures because that's where our life is, that doesn't allow for us to have enough support, but we get to create support through community. Like we get to call on the village. and do that without shame, because like as humans, we're social beings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that, the village.
Yeah, we are social beings. Yeah, totally. We are social beings. And it's like, having relationship with neighbors where, we have a snow blower where we can share the snow blower, share the lawnmower, just share. You don't have to have, like, every single household doesn't have to have all of the things. Why don't we really start sharing? So it's also that kind of shift. That kind of shift from individualism to more collectivism.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. Thank you. All right. So I'm curious to know what wisdom you passed on to your son. I yeah, and what's coming to mind is that in during that time when I actually met you and started doing workshops and courses with you, I was I had this vision in my mind that I wanted a guide. And in my mind, it was like this magical woman who knew herbs and, all of these like magical practices. And then you showed up. I was like, oh yeah, it's Thérèse. There she is. And so I am so intrigued to learn, yeah, what wisdom you pass on to, it could be your son or your niece, and obviously your son is at a very tender age right now, but I am just so curious, like, what are you teaching them?
Yeah. For my niece who's older, she's in high school now. My son is only a couple of years old. He's 5 years old. So with him, it's I'll start with him. And with him is like really inviting him to be in his curiosity. Kids are naturally curious. And one of the things that our society steers them away from is that curiosity, right? So really acknowledging and letting him be curious. And especially for little Black boys living in the US and America, there's very specific connotations and very specific risks involved. And my whole thing is, how do I let him be the fullest expression of who he is? Because he's so curious. He's also so creative. He loves to draw. He loves, like, now he's really into planets. I know I had told you months ago he was into elephants. Well, he's now into planets and knows all the planets in the solar system and like everything, things that I don't know. And it's telling me, do you know that, I think it's Jupiter. Jupiter eats asteroids. And I'm like, no, I don't know that. So just really allowing him to be curious and to have fun. And he loves to like hug trees and be in actually relationship with nature and the world. And really saying, be in that relationship. That's special. That's, instead of just being like, you have to, he's not doing math, but like next year, oh, you got to do your math homework. You got to know how to do this. You have to know how to do all of these things that are cognitive. That takes us away from embodiment and being in our bodies and listening to our bodies, but really just allowing him to explore and play. And he's more the leader than I am. I'm like following, like seeing what he's interested in, and I'm like following, and that's actually opening up things within me by letting him lead. Yeah. And for my niece who is in high school, teenager, I feel like, of course, we're having a lot of conversations. She's talking about college and just different considerations, but just reminding her that she is not her grades. She is not, she is not like what a piece of paper says about you, and she's more than that. And what she has to offer is more in her presence than anything else. And of course, my mom has been teaching her all about the herbs, and I've been talking to her about, the cycles, body cycles, and honoring your body cycles and tuning into your body. It's actually always going back to the body, because so much of everything in especially westernized society takes us away from our bodies. And really inviting her to be more in relationship, opposed to being at war with her body, especially as, a girl. There is definitely a war that girls specifically are invited into when it comes to their bodies. I experienced it being a teenager growing up in the city, and, just remembering like constantly critiquing myself, and that critique lasted for a long time. So really getting her to embrace her innate beauty, her innate wholeness, all that makes her special.
Yeah.
And it's beyond looks and grades and all of those other things. So those are some of those things.
Thank you for that. It's interesting because I have felt as though sometimes what we talk about, it's like in alignment. So that's reminding me of the last podcast episode, which was on self-love. So I aligned that with, Valentine's Day, and I'm like, I want to talk about self-love, because like we can do the relationship thing, but like we really need to talk about self-love. And as I was going into that episode, what I was inspired to share was that we're taught some image of what beauty is, of what perfection is, of what the ideal is. And there is constant comparison to that. There is constant working towards getting that, and never being at home in our bodies and at home with ourselves. And basically everything that we watch on TV, everything in the media, it feels like an attack on the body. Right? You should do this, buy this product to make this happen, to like whatever change needs to happen in the body. And it's crazy. Like even in movies, right? The person that is chosen as like the pretty girl, the handsome guy, there's specific features that are chosen, so that over time we associate beauty with those features. And when we look at ourselves in the mirror and don't see beauty, that's where the harm comes in. So there's so much unlearning that has to be done in order for us to fully accept ourselves, in order for us to reject some idea that some other human is giving us. Like, it's crazy. Why do you get to choose the model? Like, who said that that's perfection?
Yeah, and it's corporations, right? A group of people within corporations with very specific goals and intentions in mind. And as you were talking, I right before we hopped on, this came really through my head.
Yeah.
And I wrote it down, and I want to read it to you. And I wrote, "Our bodies are where the war is being waged, but it's also where the revolution will be won."
Oh boy. That is powerful. That is powerful. Yeah. And so that's why this embodiment work is so important. Yeah. Can you share more about that for people who don't know what is embodiment work, and for you, how you express it? Ooh, I'm so excited.
Thank you so much for asking that question. And, embodiment, so many people ask me, like, what is embodiment? And really what comes to me is like, embodiment isn't something that can be defined. It's meant to be a felt experience. And embodiment, essentially, it invites us back into relationship with our bodies, with other bodies, including land as a body. And embodiment, one of the things I say is like, embodiment is the antithesis to all of the systems that seek to disconnect us or seek to strip us from our power. Mm-hmm. And it's about coming back into this deep relationship, this deep sense of reverence mm-hmm. to our bodies, to other bodies, to land as bodies, to both human and non-human bodies, seen and unseen bodies. So it's, when I say seen and unseen, I'm talking about like seen in this world and beyond, in the ancestral world, in the dream world. So it weaves many different things. Mm-hmm. And really it acts as a portal. Mm. Our bodies are a portal. And it really invites us to come into relationship with our nervous system, to know how our nervous system is being impacted, how we can soothe our nervous system. You know, what cues is it telling us? A lot of times we override all of these messages that our bodies are telling us because of grind culture, because of hyperproductivity, because of all the things, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes because of we got to get a meal on the table. Mm-hmm. And so even though I'm exhausted, I got to go to work, right? Yeah. But embodiment invites us back into that relationship, into that two-way dialogue, not one way of like, you're doing this. We're telling our body, this is what you're going to do today, mm-hmm. but a two-way dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. And how does that manifest for you? Like, how do you guide people through it? What are those practices and what are your practices?
Yeah. So for me, I have a huge performance background. So, but then that's woven in with my studies in somatic. So movement through voice, mm-hmm. through breath. Mm-hmm. So those are like some of my favorite practices, but through ritual and ceremony, mm-hmm. Through nature, those are all the ways that we can like come back home to our bodies, come back home to the messages that our bodies are trying to share with us. But I have to say, it doesn't end there, because mm-hmm. our bodies are also the landscapes where we mobilize, mm-hmm. right, to create the world that we want to see. Yeah. So that means dismantling systems that don't support all of us. That means, speaking up, even though our heart is racing. That's where I was talking about. Sometimes we are not going to be regulated. Like if I have to, speak up about something that really mm-hmm. matters to me, my heart may be racing in that moment. And that's okay. Yeah. It's about not being in that state all the time, in that fight or flight state all the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Beautiful. Yeah. And it's honoring what's showing up in the body, right? Mm-hmm. If the dysregulation needs to happen, it's happening for a reason, and honoring that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the practices that I have actually been using for a while in terms of embodiment is dance. And it's interesting, and music, dancing and singing. As I've shared this practice with people, I would always say, I'm not a dancer. I'm not trained in dancing, or I'm not a professional singer. And I started catching myself like, oh, why do I need to be trained? Why do I need to be a professional? Right. And that goes back to this idea of the image, right? The model, and falling into that. And if you don't, then you're mediocre and you probably shouldn't do it. Or you probably shouldn't do it in front of anybody else. You're either the best or like you're mediocre.
Yeah, like you shouldn't sing because you're not singing like Whitney Houston.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And I've heard it from other people that I interact with as well. That like I sing, but just in the shower, or I couldn't sing on stage, for example. And that doesn't matter because it's an expression of the body, right? Like my individual body likes to express this way. And so dancing has been an ongoing practice for me. So I might wake up in the morning, depending on what I'm feeling in my body, like do a stretch, a yoga stretch. And I don't do like a full-on yoga sequence in a studio because my body doesn't want that. My body just wants a nice little 5-minute stretch to like one song. And then I might move into dancing. And I realized that I get to just like follow my body, how does my body want to move, and just move with that. And it's been so liberating because like things are moving out and there's wisdom that's coming in. And the other day, I think it was yesterday, I was remembering Elizabeth Gilbert, the author of Eat, Pray, Love. Oprah had invited her for something, and she talked about the months that she took to prepare for it, and how she would like walk the speech into her body, right? Like walk the words into her body that she would share with this massive audience of thousands of people. And what came to me was like, oh, the impact that trauma has had, or that colonialism has had on our bodies, we get to move it out of our body in that way. Just as we can like walk something into our system, we get to move it out through movement. And so this embodiment work, it's so important because it's accessing the wisdom of our body to be the healers. Like it's the medicine.
Yeah, it is the medicine. And, you just said the word trauma, and, our bodies are portals to heal trauma. Obviously, there are many different ways. And I've been studying around intersections of body and trauma for the past like 4.5 years or so. And I'm in a training now that's a trauma resolution training, going deeper into that work. And, our bodies are how we can heal. Our bodies are how we can heal. And so much of, the popular, I don't want to say popular culture or popular what's accepted, is that we heal in very specific ways, like clinical ways, or we heal through just talking about it. When in actuality, what science, the medical world has found is that actually the wisdom and the healing happens through our bodies.
Right.
So it's reversing that top-down approach from healing to one that's more bottom-up.
Yeah. Thank you. So one of the themes that you hold that I really resonate with is weaving a better world. And I think you might call it a brave new world. But the idea of weaving, creating something better together, something that's more sustainable for all of us. So firstly, I'd love for you to actually say what that is so we get that, because it's so beautiful.
Yeah, weaving the new world, or weaving
Yeah.
a brave new world.
Yeah.
I say weaving the new world.
Yeah. So what does that look like for you, and how can we all play a part in that?
I think for me, it really looks like first untangling from all the ways that colonialism has shaped me. So really let my shape be the most organic shape it can be, meaning like truly be me, truly be me. And from there, I can do my part in weaving the new world. And I feel like my part is holding space for people. They might see themselves as leaders, some might not, and that's okay. But so, which is why I say people, holding space for people so that they can step into their unique medicine, so that they can step into their unique gifts, so that we can change the world. We can shift the world to one where it supports all of us. And for me, I feel like weaving the new world is also around decolonial leadership. How can we lead in a way that is in harmony with the earth? How can we lead in a way that's in harmony with one another? I mean, right now we're seeing the war at the time that we're speaking. There's a war being fought or a genocide happening in Ukraine. And, you know, I think it can be easy to just look at good versus bad, versus looking at their deep systems that are at play all over the world that have created this. And obviously there are specific people who have made choices for this to happen. Yeah, so I feel that I'm really feeling we need to also step into decolonial leadership so that we're in relationship with our earth. We're in relationship with one another, opposed to extracting from, killing, murdering.
Yeah.
Yeah, how can we, and I feel like, and that's so to me, embodiment and decolonial leadership, they come together. You know, it's like they're together. So we need both.
For me, it's reinforcing that we all need to be doing something, right? As we're in this world together, as we're sharing the earth, the land, like we all need to be doing something towards that healing. Yeah. So something else just popped to mind, which it's such a big part of your work, which is like spirit. And I want us to touch on that. Yeah, so what's coming to mind is in corporations, as things become more systemized, more formal, more business-like, there is more of, we move further away from spirit. Yeah. And I would also say that, you know, so when I started my business, when I started doing this work, it came from spirit, but then there was something else on the surface there. I didn't feel as though spirit could be a part of my work, because I thought, oh, like people won't resonate with that. They'll think it's woo woo. I can be that, but I need to use some other language to invite people in. So I'd love to hear like whatever is coming up for you.
Yeah, I totally hear you. And I feel that's that's part of the reclamation and part of the desecration of the earth is that disconnection from spirit. And I feel like a lot of people may conflate spirit with religiosity. And spirit is not religiosity, at least not to me. That's not religiosity or some kind of dogma. And it's really how I'm in connection to the mystery, what holds us all, the thing that cannot be described, that is everywhere. And even as I say that, I start to feel it in my body.
Yeah.
And that is also our bodies are a portal to connecting us to spirit.
Yeah.
To connecting us to spirit. So I feel like for me, spirit is the foundation. And because it reminds me personally of my connection to everyone, everything, everything. It reminds me of my connection. And that's not to say I don't get off track, but then, you know, it's always about recalibrating and going back to spirit. It's always there.
Yeah.
So moments of fear or doubt or worry, recalibrating and going back to spirit. And for me, that can just mean like literally going, it's a little bit too cold right now, but literally going and laying on the grass outside and feeling the sun on my face, or if it's dark outside, the moon, if the moon is out, taking a moon walk and having a conversation with the moon. Literally, that is being in a relationship with spirit, being in that mystery. And part of it is not needing to having to describe everything, not needing to have everything be labeled and categorized and named.
Yeah.
And that's, part of cognitive, and, it is very colonialist to have everything categorized and labeled and named. And there's beauty in that too, right? There can be beauty in that, but we don't need that for every single thing.
Yeah.
Allowing ourselves to be in the mystery, being in that surrender. That's part of life. It's part of life. And I remember we were having a conversation where we were talking about breath work, and actually for this podcast. And I was, talking to you about, okay, well, this is the physiology. This is what happens in our bodies. And then there's this element of it, that spirit, and it's the mystery that cannot be named. I can try to explain it to you, what happens. I will always fall short because it's part of that mystery.
Yeah. I'm really appreciating that. Thank you for saying that. Ooh, and I also felt, so when you said the thing that holds all of us, the mystery, like I felt that too. And I felt the expansion in my system, like, yeah.
Holds all of us.
It like we can't hold it because it's still the mystery. There's so much to it. Yeah. And as you were sharing about your moonwalks, I was remembering walking in nature, and there's a tree that I had a special relationship with, and I remember introducing the tree to Jose, like, oh, this is my friend. And we hugged the tree, we took a picture by the tree. Each time I took a break from work and went outside, I would first greet the stream, because there's a stream close to where we lived, and I would first greet the stream as mother, like, hello mother, and could just feel the melting away in my body, the softness in my body, and how sitting on the grass I could immediately feel more grounded. Of course, there's research now about like how these things impact our body, whether it's like the negative ions balancing the positive, but there's still so much more that we don't know. And just like following that, like feeling the difference that's happening in the body, and knowing that if it feels good, then that's a yes.
Yeah. And the thing is that, we can know something cognitively and know all the definitions, but not have an embodied experience of it. And that's where it has the impact. Obviously, in terms of our body, all of our bodies, or many people's bodies have been impacted by trauma. And trauma essentially can show up as seeing danger, even though danger is not there. So we can have an experience in our bodies, like literally being in nature in a quiet space, and we're in a fight response or a flight response, but that's not the appropriate response for that situation. Or maybe, the way that trauma has impacted us, let's say it's impacted us in early childhood development, that we're unable to see when someone is genuine, because we have never experienced, the love of our caretakers. So even if they meet Natalie, and Natalie is like nice and smiling, but that smile gets interpreted as a threat. So that's where our bodies can also possibly deceive us when it comes to trauma.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Thank you.
But then it's not deceiving us. It's letting us know this is how we see the world. Right? It's letting us know this is how we see the world. And if we can get into a space where we're like, actually, I'm just in my room. There's nothing going on here. And, so there are somatic practices and trauma resolution work that brings us back into that communication, or, resolves those traumas around what those experiences.
Yeah. Back home to ourselves.
Yeah.
But
it's through our bodies, even though it's like through our bodies that we go back home.
Thank you for that. Are there any final words? We could go on for many more hours.
Oh my God, so many. Such a nourishing and so beautiful conversation with you. I just feel like, I can talk to you forever. I really, really can. And, it's just been such an honor to have this conversation together. And I feel like, I forgot we're even recording. It just feels like one of our conversations, which is the best. So, but thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so where can people find you?
You could find me at embodiedblackgirl.com. Also my website, which is theresecator.com. That's ThereseCator.com. And I'm sure you'll have it in the show notes too. But those are some of the places you can find me.
And on Instagram.
I really use Instagram.
Okay.
I try to use Facebook. I don't ever log on, and I just had to let go. It's one of those things I had to let go of. But I'm on Instagram.
Facebook has also been a struggle for me, and we've had that conversation. Facebook didn't allow me to be my best self.
It's hard, when you being a mom and you're running a business and all of these things. It's like you have to know where to put your energy and what is giving you energy and what is depleting you of energy. That's been the thing for me, and really recognizing that. But those are the places where folks can find me. I'd love to connect. Please let me know what resonates about the conversation.
Yes, wonderful. Well, Thérèse, this has been an honor. I'm so grateful. And we've touched on some really deep and juicy topics. And of course, there's so much more that we could have touched on. So I invite people to check out your work, find you on Instagram, check out your website, see what resonates with them, and see what breadcrumb can lead them to the next and the next, allowing them to spiral deeper. So thank you again for sitting with me today.
Thank you, Natalie.
All right, y'all. So this has been another episode of the Preparing for Pregnancy After Loss podcast. And you know where to find me on Instagram at The Birth Warriors, on my website, nataliefacey.com. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.